The 6 components of the R3 approach lay out a good path for us in terms of how it is that we should continue directing our thoughts and actions when it comes to genuinely improving at the game. The first 3 components of the approach have more to do with our thoughts as they relate to beginning with the end in mind in terms of genuinely improving. And then the final 3 components are going to have more to do with the actions we take in terms of practicing and actually playing the game once we're on the golf course. As we recall, component number 1, the 5 universal truths or laws, are 5 aspects of the game that we should all be aware of. And then component number 2, the 4 perspectives of playing and improving at the game, simply point out the 4 directions from which our games will evolve as our continued experience with and exposure to the game increases. Component number 3 here is actually a blueprint of our golf game. As architects of our own game, we should have a good understanding of where it is that we're going with our game, what it is we're working on. This is what component number 3 will provide for us in terms of having that good blueprint. With that in mind, let's now have a look at component number 3 of the R3 approach, the R3 blending puzzle. It's a tenet of the R3 approach that when we're involved with the awesome and peculiar game of golf, we're all players, competitors, teachers, and coaches all at the same time. Taken collectively, these 4 roles makes us all students of the game. And as students of the game, we're actually architects of our own game. Well, in terms of being a good architect, it certainly helps to have a good blueprint of what it is that we're directing our thoughts and actions towards. This is what the R3 blending puzzle does. It presents 16 characteristic traits that we as players all possess. Whether we are aware of it or not, we all do possess these 16 aspects of playing the game. So in terms of genuinely improving at the game and helping to continue directing our thoughts and actions towards the right things in the right way, we can have a look at the blending puzzle in order to help direct our thought and action toward these different aspects of genuinely improving at the game. Okay, let's have a little fun, provoke some thought toward genuinely improving at the game. Again, whatever skill level it is we are, from beginner to professional tournament level, we're all on the same path here. Perspective number 2 indicated to us that we will be, in fact, directing our thoughts and actions. Our games will be evolving from these 4 different perspectives. What we need to know now in terms of the blending puzzle, it's going to provide a blueprint in terms of how it is that we'll be directing our thoughts and actions. What we should know at this point is that the 3 neighboring pieces to each perspective will in fact begin describing that perspective for us. In other words, when we begin to explore each of the neighboring pieces to each perspective, we will in fact be genuinely directing our thoughts and actions toward the right things in the right way and at the right time. With this in mind, knowing that the 3 neighboring pieces are going to describe each perspective, let's have a look at version 1.0 of the blending puzzle. Version 1.0 of the blending puzzle is the social recreational level player, and each of these pieces will at this point be identified. Okay, we're getting the rubber to meet the road now in terms of genuinely improving at the game. Version 1.0 of the blending puzzle identifies the 3 neighboring pieces to each perspective. As we'll see there with perspective number 1, beginning with the end in mind, the factual perspective, all about our mindfulness as a golfer. Here we'll come to understand what fluidity is all about. That's simply doing things without thinking about it. In other words, we'll just be doing things in the golf swing in a fluid manner. We'll come to understand what feel is all about in terms of playing a golf shot. And then ultimately, we'll understand what's required in terms of becoming consistently better at all things that we're doing as we play the game. Then we'll shift our focus over to the mechanical perspective. And again, it's the mechanical perspective that sets up for us the things that we want to be doing with the golf club in terms of our objective of using that golf club in a manner close to the way in which it's designed to be used. Here we'll have a look at the 3 mechanical laws, the first of which is the law of angle, in terms of creating angular momentum in our golf swing. This is our primary source of power as we make our golf swing. We'll then understand the importance of moving that angle through an acceptable and repeating swing path. The importance of developing a good swing path is going to have everything to do with our ability to ultimately create a good release action in our golf swing. The release action is arguably the most important mechanical function that we'll have going on in terms of the mechanical processes that we're developing in our golf swing. We'll then shift our focus down that what axis. We'll head down that what axis to the physical perspective. Again, this is where we have a look at our body and how our body is going to actually support the mechanical functions that we have going on as we swing the golf club. Here we're going to direct our thoughts and actions towards our grip, aim, and setup in terms of creating that ready position as we prepare to make our golf swings. We'll also understand that it's the rhythm and timing in our golf swing that ultimately determines the quality of any given swing that we make. We'll then shift our focus across the bridge over here to the tactical perspective. The tactical perspective is where we begin the how axis. In other words, this is where we begin taking what we've got and making it work once we're on the golf course. The tactical perspective is all about our brain, and the fact that the brain is our control center for everything that's going on. We'll begin to explore emotional processes that we have during the course of a round. The emotional processes will certainly be handled by our mental processes, or our attitude as we play. It's the emotional processes and mental process that will actually create the belief system that we have in terms of being able to take what we've got and make it work once we're on the golf course. So here we've identified the three neighboring pieces to each perspective. We can now move on to version 2.0 of the blending puzzle, the recreational competitive level player. It's at this point that we have and are having more experience with the game. While this is taking place, each one of these pieces will become more fully developed. With that in mind, let's now have a look at version 2.0 of the blending puzzle. Version 2.0 of the puzzle shows our games evolving as our experience with and exposure to the game continues. In terms of each of those pieces, we'll now see that in terms of fluidity, we'll know that there's a difference between good fluidity and poor fluidity, and the worst place to be is caught in the middle of the two. Then we'll see that we're beginning to develop touch in terms of improving our feel for playing a golf shot. Then we'll understand that in terms of becoming consistently better at playing the game, we'll now need to be persistent with doing all things necessary in order for that to happen. Then in terms of genuinely improving at the game, we'll be shifting our focus over there to that mechanical perspective. Again, here the mechanical perspective is all about our golf club, using that golf club in a manner close to the way in which it's designed to be used. We'll now understand that the angle is actually an angle formed between our arms and the shaft of the club, and again, it is our primary source of power in the swing. We'll also understand that our swing path is going to begin to create the initial influence on the direction that we actually hit the golf ball. We say initial influence on how we hit the golf ball because where we hit the golf ball ultimately becomes a function of our release action. Well, we'll know now that release action is a function of both our arms releasing in terms of squaring that club face and our body releasing in terms of creating more power in the golf swing. So again, that release action is arguably the most important mechanical function that we have going on in the swing, and it will in fact be a function of both our arms releasing and our bodies releasing. Okay, and then as we continue with our experience with and exposure to the game, we know that we're sliding down that what axis again into that physical perspective. And again, that physical perspective is all about our body and how it supports the mechanical processes of our golf swing. We know that it starts with the ready position. Getting into that athletic setup position, we'll be exploring things having to do with our grip, aim, and setup processes. And then we'll know now that it's the athletic factor in our golf swing, the rhythm and timing that we have in our golf swing, that ultimately creates the quality of any given swing that we make or any given shot that we play. And then again, we'll know that it's necessary that we cross that bridge. We have to cross that bridge, get off that what axis onto the how axis, and begin taking what we've got and making it work once we're on the golf course. Again, that tactical perspective, it's all about our brain, the control center, and we'll know now that emotional processes that we have going on are actually feelings that we have as we play golf shots around the golf course. We'll know that it's our mental processes or our thoughts that determines how it is that we're going to be handling and dealing with those emotional processes that we're having. And it's the combination of these two that create our belief system. Our belief system, again, determines how it is that we're going to be taking what we have and actually having it work better for us once we're on the golf course. And again, it's very important at this point, too, that as our games develop, all these pieces are developing whether we know it or not. What's most important at this point is to understand that we will, in fact, be blending these four perspectives together. Our objective at this point is to truly get to the point where we are playing in good fluid motion, which requires that we do, in fact, blend these four different perspectives together. So with this in mind, we can now have a look at version 3.0 of the blending puzzle. That is what we refer to as the competitive and tournament level player. Here we'll see that each piece of the puzzle is achieved its fully developed form, And in terms of beginning with the end in mind, even if we're a beginner new to the game, it's good to have a look at the fully developed version of the puzzle, knowing that we will in fact be heading in that direction in terms of developing each piece of the blending puzzle to a degree at which it will be, again, operating in a fluidly good manner. Okay, with this in mind, let's have a look at version 3.0 of the blending puzzle, the competitive and tournament level player. Version 3.0 shows the puzzle in its fully developed form, including the bridge down there, indicating that we do need to remember to get off of that what axis onto the how axis when we do go into competition. It's worth noting at this point too that in the R3 approach, we're always highlighting in red those concepts that are carrying a little more meaning at this time. In terms of going into competition, you can see that we have the how axis actually highlighted in red, whereas in version 2.0 of the puzzle, we highlighted the what axis in terms of what it is we're working on. This is because we tend to focus more when we're working on our golf swings. We'll be on the what axis, focusing again on what it is we're working on in terms of developing our golf swings and putting strokes. But then when we cross that bridge, it's necessary now that we focus more on how it is that we're going to take what we've got and make it work well for us once we're on the golf course. And two, competition exists at all levels. It might be us competing at a static level. In the R3 approach, we talk about competition happening at two levels, the static level and the dynamic level. The static level is simply us competing against ourselves to do better than we did before. We may be competing against ourselves to simply shoot the best score we've ever shot and do this by ourselves while we're on the golf course. Well, this too is competition, and in order to do that at this time too, we have to cross that bridge, get onto that how axis, and again, take what we've got and make it work well when we're playing that round. And in a competition, this is what we refer to as dynamic competition, where at this point we're competing against another player or a field of players. The same things are happening. Whatever level we are entering competition, competition is the same thing. So we do have to remember that it's necessary that we get onto that how axis in order to take what we've got and make it work to the best of our ability. Now, in terms of looking at each of the puzzle pieces as they exist in version 3.0, the blending puzzle, we now see that in terms of that overall objective of obtaining good fluid motion when we actually do play, now we'll see that the fifth law, the fifth truth in terms of playing the game, the law of subtraction, is necessary in order for us to actually obtain that good fluid motion state, that is, playing in the zone. In order to do this, we have to understand what the fifth law is all about in terms of subtracting down to essentially nothing any kind of thoughts and actions that we might have going on that would interfere or prevent us from experiencing that zone that we're all looking for. Then in terms of our feel for playing the game, feel in the R3 approach is described as having a good intuitive sense for doing with the golf club what the shot is calling for us to do with the golf club. So in terms of having feel, it requires that we do, in fact, develop touch, feel, and intuition for the process. And then again, we mentioned at the second level of the puzzle that in order to become consistently good at having good fluid motion take place, it's going to require that we become persistent with doing all things necessary in order for that to happen. When we are addressing things in this manner, we are truly beginning with the end in mind, and this is what the first perspective is all about. It's our mindfulness as a golfer. It's beginning with the end in mind in terms of developing our playing process in such a manner that it will in fact allow us to experience that good fluid motion that we're looking for. Okay, and then in terms of the version 3 of the puzzle, shifting our focus over there to the mechanical perspective, what we see going on here is basically the same thing that we've had going on the whole time, and that is the recognition that the mechanical perspective is all about our golf club, which is a tool, and it's our objective at this point to understand that we want to use that club in a manner close to the way in which it's designed to be used. And again, it's here that we see the three mechanical laws related to the mechanical perspective, and that is, again, the mechanical law of angle, angular momentum in the golf swing, involving our arms and the shaft of the club, creating lag power, which is angular momentum in the golf swing. So the angle is our primary source of power, creating lag power in our golf swing. Then we're going to want to have that angle move through a consistently acceptable and repeating swing path. It's our ability to deliver that angle through an acceptable and repeating swing path that will ultimately determine our ability to develop a good release action in terms of squaring that golf club to the path that we're swinging it on. This too becomes a function of both our arms releasing and our bodies releasing in a golf swing. The release action that we have in our golf swing determines the power and direction that we're able to create as we swing that golf club. And then in terms of moving down that what axis, we find ourselves in that physical perspective again. Again, the physical perspective is all about how our body is going to support the club from a mechanical perspective. Here we recognize the fact that our body is being set up in an A-frame condition, an athletic setup position. When we do begin to direct our thoughts and actions towards our body, we'll be continuously directing our thoughts and actions at the ready position. That is our grip, aim, and setup processes as we prepare to make our swings. Then most importantly, in terms of how we're actually swinging the golf club, and whatever swing method or model it is that we're exploring, what's going to be important to us is the recognition that our spine angle is very important in the golf swing. It's our spine angle that creates the axis around which we'll be swinging the golf club. And when it comes to swinging that golf club, once we begin our swings, what we'll be doing is creating two pivots in the golf swing. There'll be a pivot on the backswing and a pivot on the through swing. It's these two pivots that create the overall action of our golf swing. And then in terms of the shot quality that we're experiencing on any given swing or any given shot that we make, it's going to be completely a function of the rhythm and timing that we have associated to that particular golf swing. This is what the physical perspective is all about. And in the R3 approach, we do refer to the physical perspective as the lab, because it's here that we're going to be doing the most experimenting and exploring in terms of developing our golf swings and our putting strokes. So the lab is where we do, in fact, develop these golf swings and putting strokes. But again, knowing that when it comes time, we're going to have to cross that bridge over to the how axis. The how axis is started by the fourth perspective, the tactical perspective. Well, here we can see that our tactical perspective is all about our brain, the control center for everything that's going on as we play. Well, we'll come to find out in this perspective that it's very important that we develop a good pre-shot routine in terms of playing golf shots when we're on the golf course. It's the pre-shot routine that sets up everything that's going to happen on any given shot. So in terms of directing our thoughts and actions in the right way and at the right time, it's now that we want to begin exploring the development of a good pre-shot routine in terms of playing shots once we're on the golf course. And then again, as far as the emotional processes that we have going on, this is all to do with what we refer to in the R3 approach as EMO, that is emotional momentum. The emotional momentum that we have during the round really determines how well the round is going to play out as we move around the golf course. Very much a function of the reflexive feelings that we're having on any given shot. Well, how we deal with those reflexive feelings on any given shot is going to be completely a function of our mental processes. In the R3 approach, we indicate that our mental processes simply a combination of the thoughts, the attitude, and the decisions that we're making in terms of the things that are happening on the golf course in terms of those emotional processes that we have going on. And then again, it's the combination of our mental processes and emotional processes together that creates our belief system, our ability to take what we've got and make it work, which is the first law of the R3 approach. The first truth of the game is that we simply have to take what we've got and make it work once we're on the golf course. When we begin exploring this piece of the puzzle, we're going to see and understand that playing golf is very much a matter of the confidence that we have going on at that time. We'll understand that there is a confidence cycle, and understanding how we will go in and out of varying levels of confidence during the play of a round of golf is very important tactically in terms of being able to take what we've got and have it work well for us once we're on the golf course. And then understanding that there is a very important need to understand the use of our imagination in terms of becoming a better tactician when we're on the golf course. There's a very distinct difference between our competitive mind and our creative mind when it comes to becoming better tacticians when we're on the golf course. Well, this is a part of this piece of the puzzle in terms of understanding the differences between our creative mind and our competitive mind when it comes to becoming better tacticians and ultimately being able to take what we've got and have it work better for us once we're on the golf course. So the tactical perspective is a very interesting perspective to explore in terms of our thoughts and actions as they relate to developing and fulfilling actually that overall strategy of developing our golf games again to the point where they can be seen and felt to be mechanically sound, physically athletic, and tactically fluid processes for playing the game. So again, this was a good look at the overall blueprint in terms of everything involved with our developing our games to the point where they again will be seen and felt to become mechanically sound, physically athletic, and tactically fluid processes for playing the game. This is what the R3 approach is all about, and this is in fact what's involved with genuinely improving at the game of golf. Well, these three components that we've just had a look at really have to do with thoughts that we have in terms of how it is that we're going to be going about genuinely improving at the game. The next three components in the R3 approach actually have to do more with actions. The actions that we're taking in terms of practicing the way that we play and actually playing the game once we're on the golf course. So with that in mind, let's continue exploring the R3 approach and have a look at these next three components, which again have to do with the actions that we take. Okay, again, let's always enjoy our game improvement processes. And again, as we always say in the R3 approach, let's all continue doing good work.